It is 5:30. Do you need a sec? Oh, we're good. You good? Okay. So we'll call the meeting to order. We're recording, right?
We are recording.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So the first item on the agenda for tonight is the Jonathan Carver Parkway Improvement Project update. Gentlemen.
Go ahead. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is John Chickle. I work with WSB. We work for the county in the development of this project. So I'll just go through a few slides. I think the one thing I want to point out as we go through this, we're at about 30%. We've just completed our preliminary layout. We're finalizing construction limits. And so the staging is preliminary. There's some room for movement. So, but if you have questions as we go through it, please let me know. This is just something that I pulled off the layout to show some different examples of what is in the project. We're expanding from 2 to 4 lanes. We are, obviously there'll be a roundabout at 6th Street in Dahlgren. There'll be signals at Ironwood and Monroe. We're replacing a trunk sewer line that will carry the stormwater along the roadway, or under the roadway, and be treated in various areas along the project. The light blue area that you see here is a future bench for a trail that would not be built under this project at this time. We're working with the fire station, the fire department to identify if they want some changes to their access here, and that's something that we'll be continuing to work with them on.
Does a future bench for a trail mean a level area where a trail could go? Okay.
It'll be built off the back of the curb. So there'll be curb and gutter along each side of the northbound and southbound, and then there'll be a raised median in the middle. Some of this area will be available in the median for landscaping if that's something the city would like. Obviously, there's areas that would not have landscaping that are closer to some of the intersections. The roundabout wouldn't have any landscaping, I would anticipate. And then there'll be some new sanitary and water casings. It's just sanitary or both?
Probably both.
Both. That would cross more towards the Highway 212 potentially at this point. That's something we're working with Bolton and Mink on finalizing. And so we're just wanting to go through these things to show you some of the different elements. You'll see intersections such as here where the median would be closed, so they wouldn't be able to drive directly across.
When you say raised curb, is that your standard 8-inch curb, or is that going to be elevated, so, 2 or 3 feet?
No, it's a 6-foot tall curb.
6 foot
Or
tall?
6 inch.
I like that.
6 inch
That would be
curb.
raised.
Just a 6-inch curb,
Got
similar to what you see in your a lot of long city streets.
Yep.
But it's not mountable, so it's not tipped back, it'd be straight up.
Got it?
And so it's 6 inches tall.
Got it. All right.
Go back, sorry, go back to the, sorry if I got the term already, the bed for or the bench
Yep.
for
Oh yes, the blue
the
area.
trail on the west side. I seem to remember the last time we talked about this project, there was the option to have the trail just on one side as a cost savings measure, and now it sounds like we're gonna be doing all the prep work for that trail on the west side as well. What happened there?
So there primarily there is trail. I'll go through the whole project and you can see that.
Okay.
I think it's something that it's something that we've talked about, and primarily it's
it'd be between the city and the parks, county parks department. And there's potentially a good placement of a trail on the west side at some point, but it kind of depends on what becomes some kind of a regional trail in the future too.
Are you questioning about a financial contribution to it? Because it's different if you actually build a trail. There's a different cost sharing arrangements than if you're just doing grading.
prepping.
Those two things are not handled the same way. For example, the grading might be part of the county road project, and there might not be any
We
cost share other
typically
than.
grade something like that in the boulevard right away anyway.
Okay, so we're not paying for this grading.
Yeah,
on
it's
the
not,
west side.
Scott, what she's getting at is there's this block of grading that is going to be this trail grading, and that's not how Common X gets split out.
No.
Okay, well, and
So-
what
so
I was
you
getting
would-
at
you would
was,
not
yeah,
have a direct-
I thought we said no.
Last participation.
Okay,
The bench is what material? Is it,
It's just turf.
it's turf?
Yeah,
Okay.
in the end, it will be turf, but it will
Okay.
be, it's built to support a trail potentially in the future.
Okay,
I mean, you would have to grade in the gravel and we're not, there's no
Right,
gravel
no, no.
base or anything like
The
that
base.
going in.
It's just,
It's just
okay,
turf.
it's
It's
just
just-
a level
it's just
surface
different.
where a
Just
trail
right.
would be.
It's just
Got it.
normal slopes off the backside of a curve or something,
Okay,
instead of a ditch.
okay.
As long as we're talking this area, so you said there's not gonna be any landscaping in the roundabout, which obviously for sightlines, you don't want to tell. What will that look like in the roundabout? What will be in
Can
there?
I take that one, because we're working a bit on the landscaping concepts, and what he's referring to is there's certain limitations with roundabouts where you're not gonna put, you wouldn't put a redwood tree in the middle of a roundabout, it's something big and fixed that, is a hazard, but there's different elements that you can put that you can, drive over safely if there's a runoff,
So is that part of the
those types of things
project
would
within the
be
year?
something that would be presented to the county for review.
I mean, it could be just as simple as just maintenance-free grasses or something.
There you go.
Is that
Right.
what the group that's meeting for the median plans, is that part of it, or they're doing the roundabout also?
Yeah, but all of that, and there'll be some options, and all of that would be subject to additional reviews and discussions with the county, but yeah, he's referring to a lot of the fixed objects that are safety issues.
Stupid question. Why would a redwood tree in the middle of a roundabout be a driving hazard?
Oh, if it's.
Just facetiously.
Okay, so it's a
You know
fixed
what, we're on
object.
a really tight.
Yeah,
schedule
I understand
tonight.
that.
Fire department, but I
I'm
just-
asking the question. I want that one
It's an
answered.
obstruction.
Yeah.
It's not,
Okay.
it's like, you don't want things within a certain distance of the roadway in case a vehicle runs off and the vehicle hits it in a way that it can create a much more severe accident. So, you don't want large obstructions in your clear zone is what we call it. And the clear zone is usually a certain amount of feet off of the shoulder, off the fog line. And so those
What's
obstructions,
the fog line?
the white
White.
line,
Okay,
the white line.
got it.
So, you don't want large obstructions that are non-movable objects when a vehicle hits it to be in your way. It's a safety issue. It's probably the best way to put it. So we'll walk through the whole layout, and 4th Street, just south of 4th Street is where the project begins. And then it will go to the north side of 212, but this is a segment that shows up just south of Dahlgren Road and 6th Street. You can see the transition from 2 to 4 happens after 4th Street, and there'll be a 2 lanes in each direction with turn lanes from 4th Street all the way up to 212. You can see some of the trails in this area here. Oh, you can't see my mouse. So there's a brown area on the left bottom corner. That's one of the trails. A lot of times it's just segments of trails that are being impacted that we are reconstructing at this point, trying to maintain the existing system. There might be some grade changes or something along those lines that we have to go in and repave or reconstruct some of the parts of the trail. So this is the middle segment, segment 2. Again, from just south of Dahlgren to Ironwood. And as you'll see in the future, this is the piece that we're looking at closing for a period of time. North-south movements, not east-west, just north-south movements during the construction. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Again, you can see small pieces of the trail that are being reconstructed. And you can, again, the bench that we've talked about, the intersection around Dahlgren, because of the roundabout, there's more trail reconstruction in that area because of the configuration. The intersection is getting wider, so it's requiring some realignment of the trails through that area.
I have some questions. At one time, there was on that White Pine Parkway to JCP intersection, there was maybe gonna be, you weren't allowed to turn left coming out of White Pine Parkway. That was really early concepts. That's what's being shown here. So how does it look now? Like you
That's in
can't
the
turn
middle of
left.
the page there?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
so
middle
there is
intersection.
there is a median not be able to turn, if you're coming south, you would not be able to turn to go east. If you're coming north, you would not be able to turn to go west.
Okay, so that's.
It'd be
staying
what
there.
I would call a right in, right out type
Okay.
configuration. Okay.
That was it, right in, right out. And then further down there was the A, and now I see a B, a C. Is that, what's the relevance of that? Or is it?
Oh, those are just typical sections that you'll.
So you can break the
showing-
project into
Yeah,
sections? Okay.
Yeah, where you can see the different roadway from a different perspective.
He
Okay.
has, he has a rollout, and
Got
if
it.
you were to look at the rollout, those sections would be at the bottom of that rollout.
Okay. Right.
This is kind of
Thanks.
just a PDF version of that.
Okay. And then this is the northern segment. There's a little more trail that's being constructed. You can see on the southern half of this, just north of Ironwood is where the new box culvert will be for a pedestrian crossing and the new trails that are being constructed to lead up to that. There's a pond obviously in the northwest, or the, I guess it'd be the southwest quadrant of 212 and CASA 11. We're accommodating for an access into the quick trip with, when you look kind of in the middle of the screen on the north side or the upper end, that's the access into the quick trip. And so again, you can see the bench along the east side of CASA 11. So there's various things going on in here, but again, the intersection in the middle of the screen would be completely open. There'd be a signal that's going to be located there. There'll be a temporary signal that will be maintained during construction as well. As you go across the bridge, there will be a trail on the west side of the bridge over Highway 212. There will be some work on that bridge to accommodate that trail, kind of shifting the lane lines a little bit. And then on the north side of 212, we're extending the raised median to provide a little more intersection control and traffic guidance through that intersection.
We won't be increasing the footprint of the road through there, we're just
Right.
basically reassigning some lanes.
Right.
To make it safer, basically.
John, just one small detail that to access your building into, into that site would probably be, where is the access into the future commercial United Properties site?
Okay.
The access into Quick Trip would be off the
Oh,
road.
off the
So
road.
there would be
All
a
right.
direct connection, just
That's right, that's my mistake.
quick clarification.
Okay.
The brown line there on the west side of Jonathan Carver Parkway, that's the trail.
That's the trail.
Got it, okay.
Can we go back one slide? So if we're looking at White Pine Way and we're gonna do a right in, right out, so the folks that need to turn left on either one, what do you anticipate is gonna be their routes through the neighborhoods? Have we?
As far as the
Well,
finished,
if you wanna
the finished product, as far as.
Go ahead.
6th or
Go
Yeah.
hit the roundabout.
Well, you
So
can't
you
go
gotta
left.
up to-
No, you go down the roundabout, come back
Come
up.
back.
They'd have to weave themselves over to either
Which-
Ironwood or 6th Street through the local roadway
Those are-
system.
The two closest
Those
ones.
are the only, they'll have to pick their route, whatever's closest.
Okay. And not having, fire department, you're here. What do you guys, we're taking an access out, right, which creates more traffic going through other neighborhoods. But when you're looking at safety things with, getting in for emergencies, how do you guys think that's gonna work?
We were just whispering about that. Obviously, we'd have to go up and then come back down, or go up through the neighborhood. I think there's access.
Cause you can't whip a U-turn fire truck up here.
Couldn't you go west on Dahlgren Road? Isn't there an access that way?
It's not as quick that way, but that's the only option from that.
So can I get a little more background on the reason that we would be taking that crossways out there? And why would we going with the only right in, right out?
If I remember, doesn't the hill play a lot to it as far as having the right amount of visibility?
I want them to answer the question. You guys are.
The county access spacing guidelines for major intersections.
Yeah, and you have two major intersections. One will be signalized and one will have the roundabout. And so having that intersection in the middle, allowing vehicles to shoot across, creates some challenges in terms of safety as well, and so that's where some of these access spacings come from.
Yeah.
And so, there's a couple different reasons, but having an open intersection there starts impacting how each intersection on each end will operate as well. And so there's a variety of reasons why you'd want that intersection closed at the median, but allow the right in, right out.
What's the speed limit gonna be on the road?
Well,
You're designing to 50.
Yeah, it's
It's
designed to
it's
50.
designed to 50, and then the rest of it would be confirmed with speed study, I would imagine, is what the county's gonna do.
Yep, we'll have to do that, yeah. It's the last official speed study would be a 50.
And in the concepts and the open houses that we had that intersection closed off as right in, right out, right? And I don't recall any specific feedback from local residents or anything concerns about that intersection.
Because they're probably not paying attention yet.
Safety improvement, we try to meet our access spacing guidelines and based for safety purposes.
I would like to hear your guys' feedback if you have some now or later.
I think ultimately the intersection will be safer. You won't have those cars, so potentially preventing PIs. For us, I mean, there will be 2 access points. We can either, go in and off of Dahlgren or, go up to the next intersection. So.
we've talked through this slide. So the goals of the staging, a lot of times when you're looking at when we were here earlier or later last year, one of the things that we heard was try to get it done in a year, right? And so when you start looking at that, you look at acceleration, which drives your cost. There's a variety of options. I'll go over some of the different things that we looked at. But when you're looking at your goals of your staging, you really look at how you could most cost effectively build what we're trying to build in the time frame that we're allotted. Limit it to 1 year, maintain traffic to businesses, school, the fire station, and neighborhoods. Manage through traffic safely and efficiently, right? So there's a lot going on. It can introduce distractions within the corridor for people to be watching what's going on off the road versus what's on the road. And then obviously you look for ways not just to be cost effective, but improve the constructability and safety while they're doing it. And so those are the things that we were focusing on as we looked at our staging. Here are really the 3 different options that we looked at, and there could be a combination of many of these. We looked at a full closure, but there's limitations with a full closure. The transit station off Ironwood is an important feature that we feel we need to maintain access to. But we looked at it, full closure, it would reduce your time to construct, but it increases your impact to the neighborhoods, to the businesses, to the through traffic. You would be able to maintain local traffic on CASA 11, but it would be a little more challenging to maintain access to some of the businesses at times. And so, there's a variety of things that we're looking at here, but high impact access for school and businesses and fire station was one of those negative attributes of this approach. Now, the other one is construct completely under traffic, other end of the spectrum, and it requires more staging, more moving around of traffic, and a lot more coordination. We don't believe you could do this in a year if you built it all under traffic within a year. Just when you think about it, I'll give you some examples. Project's approximately 1.5 miles long. There's curb on the outside in each direction, and then there's curb on each direction on the inside in the median, most of the way through. That's about 6 miles of curb and gutter. That's a lot of curb and gutter to be placed in a year if you have to do it all under traffic. It's multiple mobilizations, not just for grading, but curb and gutter, paving, etc. Most of your subs. So there's a lot of things that occur that really cause us to be cost prohibitive, but also just time frame perspective create some challenges. Now, you can maintain access, there's benefits to this as well. Your maintaining access is much more effective because you're open to traffic both in the northbound and southbound and eastbound and westbound direction. But it lengthens the project.
You just have inefficiencies with
Yep.
construction.
Yep. And then the alternative that we'll talk about tonight, and we will be having an open house, so this is something that is going to be able to be massaged, but this is something that we've been moving towards based on what we're seeing. Is really a combination. We would start with open the traffic construction during the school year and then on both ends before June 1st and after September 1st. And in the summer period, we would have some closure of portions of the roadway, not the whole roadway. All right, and I'll talk about that. So you're able to build off some of the benefits of both by having a combination of the two, and it will require some long days, 6 working days, Monday through Saturday. But this is something that we believe that can be done within 1 year. We would probably anticipate starting in, who knows how the winter's going to go, but May 1st, and you'll be done probably by November 15th. There might be some carryover for landscaping, some seeding and sodding, and some ancillary type maintenance and final cleanup types things, but the traffic would be on their permanent lanes at the end of the year is how we're looking at this.
Things to be operational.
Yep.
And normal operational things.
Right. So any questions on that at this point? All right, so this is a summary. There's really 3 phases. Phase 1 is you begin construction for the whole project, a full 1.5 miles under traffic. And that occurs from whenever we can start in the spring of 2021 to whenever school is out. Once school is out, phase 2 would begin, and there'd be an allowable closure just north of Dahlgren Road to Ironwood Drive. We would maintain, as we close that section, it's about a 1/2 mile long, we would allow east-west movements across through the intersections. There might have to be some staggering as they're constructing one intersection where they close it for a small period of time, but they move traffic to another intersection. But that's something that we have to work out. Or they could stage it a half of the intersection at a time if we need to maintain across that east-west movement.
How much lead time will we have to inform residents and drive-through people about when it's going to be closed, what portions are going to be opening up? Because traffic patterns are going to change, they're going to be fluid throughout the whole project. People are creatures of habit, so they're going to want to know how much it's going to impact them. Do we have a ballpark on how much lead time we're going to have for each time it's going to change through there? Is it just going to be, oh, here it is today?
Well, we're 14 months out in front of that construction starting probably now, so this is the beginning of it. That's why we're here today talking about it.
Right.
We're planning an open
Phase
house
2.
this spring.
Phase 2.
Right, we're planning an open house this spring. There's a communication contract that Bolton and Mink, Bolton and Mink has, that's right. And so there'll be a series of open houses plus communications that will go out that communicate to the residents when this is going to be occurring.
I mean, we'll have the phasing and staging and everything else. It's already, it'll be on our website. The city will be linked to the county's site, and everything will be updated. By the time we start thinking about advertising for bid, and we actually get a contractor on board, he's going to create the CPM basically.
Okay.
And at that point, we'll know a lot more as far as more dates and times. But we'll have a very good idea how long these phases will end up being.
And then-
And we'll have a good sense, it's February now, probably by May, we'll know what
This year.
Of this year, we'll know what the staging is. And the time frames that things will be closed.
So there'll be plenty of notice down in Scott County and going back down 169 to let everybody know that.
Yeah, we'll look at that, if there's, we've talked about.
Coordinate with Scott County
Yep.
and
Right.
So, when the roundabout, when Dahlgren Road closes down in part of 11, the gravel pit, will they just use their entrance as their exit too?
So I'll get
Down
into that,
11?
I'll get into that here shortly.
Okay.
So phase 2 is the closure. We're not closing, Dahlgren, at this point. We're allowing a separate type, we're keeping that intersection open, but within this 8-week to 10-week period, we'd allow a 6 to 8 week closure of Dahlgren. Okay, so it's not on top, doesn't create 14 to 20, 18 weeks. The 6 to 8 week closure of Dahlgren is within 8 to 10 weeks of phase 2.
Okay.
All right. There will be a temporary lane, and I'll show you where that's at. That will be, there's some widening that we do to maintain access from the south to Dahlgren, and from Dahlgren to the south. Okay. And then phase 3 is 8 to 10 weeks, and we would complete the rest of the 1.5 miles under traffic. And I'll get into some of the things in detail with some of the segments here. So phase 1, as I mentioned, it's the spring of 2021. Last year it was so wet in the spring we didn't start till June in a lot of instances. The benefit of a project like this is you're building it on an existing road bed. So you can, there's some advantages if you have a wet spring in building something like this. It's still grading, so it's still gonna impact you, but depending on the timing, it can be more of an advantage versus just a new alignment, open grade. The full length of the project will maintain access to the fire station, the businesses, the neighborhoods, and the elementary school.
Can you talk about the backage road that's proposed for the fire station?
Yep. All right, so
Doesn't really show
it doesn't really
very
show it.
well. There was another one that showed it.
The very first slide.
So we're building that's something that we'll have to work through with the city, if it's a permanent road or not, but it wraps, it starts on the south side of the fire station, comes along the side of the fire station and goes to the west, and then back to the north, along the property line.
One of the first.
And,
This is the first, your very
Oh.
Is
first.
it the very first slide?
I'm not sure it shows exactly the road, but it shows.
It actually shows
The
up.
There it
blue
is.
line?
There it is. You can see there's a little blue line
Yeah.
in the upper left corner.
Okay.
Is the alignment of that access road. And we gotta talk if that's something that's temporary or permanent and finalize that. But that would be built early on before the closure occurs and be another access for the businesses in that quadrant of that intersection and the fire station as well.
So you're taking trees out?
Are you taking
There
out
could be
the
some
towers?
trees, there could be some trees in that area.
It's not where the towers are.
It's very close.
Really close to the tower.
Okay, just saying.
So rather than take trees out,
The tower, you need to know
No,
that
they're-
tower company has an easement over all that.
Yeah.
They've got exclusive easement rights on it.
Well,
Okay.
there's that other entrance off of the, Excel.
The substation.
Kind
Okay.
of looked at that a little bit. We talked about it.
We're looking at alternatives.
This is in the alternatives review and scoping phase right now, so you see something in the future on that, is that fair enough to say?
Yeah.
Question?
Will the gravel pit have access to using Dahlgren Road West?
Can
And
that
go
road
out
handle
to
it?
43? Or would there be weight restrictions on that?
can the gravel Dahlgren Road to the west actually handle other truck traffic coming through? That is not.
It's gravel road,
It is, but if you look, it's not a great gravel road in some places.
it's gravel road.
Right, but the where I'm
We're
seeing,
talking
I realize
closure
that.
for what, 6, 8 weeks, right? Yeah. Something.
So they could go,
Yeah, but that's a lot of
As
trucks
opposed to
going
them
through
coming on 40 through downtown Carver. That's their alternative, right?
Right.
To
That
go
will
somewhere.
be-
We should explore their detour route.
any scenario with a closure is gonna have a lot of detour route evaluation that goes on. I think he's going through this, all right, do we wanna go down a detour route path and of actually closing the road down? Then there definitely will be discussions with the township. Every job will have township coordination, because whether we detour it or not there, people drive there and they call. And so that'll be evaluated along with other detour routes. So they're good comments and they're very valid ones.
We'll have conversations with the township.
Yeah. Yeah, because they will definitely call.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they will.
Okay, so traffic would be maintained on 11-foot lanes, 4-foot shoulders. There may be times where the driving surface is gravel, or some temporary pavement. We would construct, so you would build this as the east half. So the way this would start is you would start either on the west or the east half and work on that first. And you'd shift traffic to the other side and maintain traffic on that side while you're building the other half. And so then at the end, during the project, once they're done with one, they shift traffic to the new piece and they work on the older piece and build the other half. So that's how this phase would work. As you're doing this, we would construct half of the new pedestrian box, right? And then when we go to the other side of the road, the other half would be constructed at that time. Right. So phase 2 is the closure from Dahlgren to Ironwood. Summer months, yep. Right now, we're saying 8 to 10 weeks. We have to refine that, and we'll work to try to minimize that as much as possible. Again, we maintain access to the neighborhoods, the businesses, the fire station and Dahlgren Road. From the south, we maintain access to neighborhoods, businesses, and access to the school, Red Oak Ridge and Ironwood Drive from the north. CASA 11 through traffic would be detoured, and you can see the blue line, that's the one potential detour at this point.
We'll have them further out down by 169 for Scott County people too. We'll have some other.
Advanced traffic, yeah. And then, so the full closure, the area that's in red, we would anticipate by the time this is opened up again, the vast majority of that roadway would be done, both sides. So by September 1st, from Dahlgren to 212, 3/4 of that roadway would be paved. And the quarter that probably wouldn't be quite done would be north of Ironwood, half of a piece north of Ironwood.
John, could you explain where the gravel pit trucking is intended to go? Is that 40? Would that be intent they go south to the detour road?
Depends on where they're going, but
If to 212, is that the intended detour road for the gravel pit?
That would be probably the official county detour.
Okay.
there's other routes, obviously unofficial routes they could take. I doubt, if they were going west, I doubt this is the detour they'd take.
Me too, sir.
So,
So what happens if we have another wet spring?
Everything in construction is weather related.
So I think maybe what you're getting at is, I don't think the full closure can take place during the school year. So.
No,
But this is
exactly,
summer.
and you got
This is
10 weeks
summer.
of summer
Summer
between
months.
school.
Right.
Yeah, but you got 10 weeks max, mid-June to September 1.
So the stars are gonna have to align.
no, I don't think so. I mean, there's 12 weeks over that period of time. And they will need to be very much efficient when they're bringing their work in and they're performing their work. They got to coordinate their subs. There's going to be a lot of communication that's necessary in order to be successful. I think this is very doable. I don't have any concern about it being done. They have to accommodate weather as they construct every summer, and I think they'll work through it. There's things they can do when they button up a roadway over the weekend or at night to make sure water runs off that roadway and doesn't sit on it and create problems.
So what I
There's
hear you saying is that we don't have to worry, the full construction will take place when school is not in session.
So I'm a worrier, and if someone told me that I didn't have to worry, I'd still worry, okay? And so,
You can tell her.
but I am, I think there's always gonna be a risk whenever you're doing something like this, and weather is a risk for construction. And so, is it something that is something that we have to plan for? Sure. Is it something we can mitigate the impacts of? Yes. Can you plan for the act of God where you have an enormous storm of many, many inches? No, you really can't plan for that. But I think in a reasonable year, even consistent with our average year over the last few years, I think they can build this over this.
They're gonna have to hit it hard initially.
Yes.
They're gonna have to hit it hard.
It's road construction.
Yes,
It's the
but
way it
they're
is.
gonna have to,
You gotta do-
north-south, when it's open, they're gonna have to.
And one of the
You're
things
limited
that
in the strength of weight
I always
construction.
hated when I was managing projects for the owner, and this is MnDOT, is I hated it when they had one piece of equipment working on the north side and you drive the full length of the project, that was the only piece of equipment that was working on it. And it was a broom or something,
Okay.
or one piece of equipment.
We've been doing
I think
some
we like your
incentive,
management style, so
we've
that's
been
good.
doing some disincentive, incentive type
Okay.
projects, and that seems to have been working well to keep them on task.
I also want to be mindful of time. It's 6:07. We have fire department folks. How long do you guys need?
It's up to you guys. I can explain how we did in 2 minutes.
Well,
Great.
don't say that. They'll take 18.
I'll move along.
Okay, we just want to be really mindful of time because we have a hard end at 6:30 when we've got candidates coming in for planning commission.
All right. Then the last closure is really to finish up the project. Like Scott said, it's important for them to get in on day one and really start attacking the project. They have to use the whole year from May to October to get this done. And so this last piece is really finishing up any curb and paving and then grading out the slopes and seeding it down is these last 6 weeks.
I'll just say it again, the disincentive, incentive projects have kept the contractor on task. He wants the incentive, but the disincentive is enough to keep those guys there.
And gals.
Huh?
And gals.
Yeah, and gals. Guys generally.
And so here's the recap. There's the 3 phases. Phase 1 and 3 are constructed, open the traffic, full length of the project. Phase 2 is limited to an 8 to 10 week closure at this point from Dahlgren to Ironwood Drive.
No construction is fine.
There's no guarantees,
Okay.
but I think the way we're setting it up, and if we're reasonable in how we set it up, they'll be able to build it.
Okay. Questions? Is this our point for asking questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So, just as I was looking at this, I think that in my mind, the priorities are that the fire department can get wherever they need to at all times. And the second priority was that the full closure doesn't take place during the school year at Carver Elementary. I do like the idea of doing whatever it takes to have a shorter project period, even if that does mean a full closure, which will bring with it its elements of pain. I don't know if you were at the Business Alliance meeting or not, where we kind of floated this in front of
Yeah,
businesses.
everybody said get it done really fast.
Yeah, and we asked longer period or bring on all the hurt, and they said shorter construction period.
Yeah.
So, I think the other thing, and not necessarily for this meeting, but just floating around in the back of my mind, we're gonna have to really be wary of police coverage in those neighborhoods when we've got the full closure and the folks who are zipping around in there. So, any other questions, thoughts?
We'll be working with the fire department on their entrance deck and so forth.
Reach out
We've
today.
had one meeting, but we're gonna be having a few more
I have two questions, and this I just thought of too, with maybe needing more just police enforcement for these alternate routes, or just to keep speeds low at residential neighbors, just because that's typical complaints
Can
that
I
we
just
get.
interrupt you? So I think that's for a different
Okay,
time,
Yeah.
just because
So-
I want to.
all right, so so I just like, maybe a future correspondence or something to see if that's addressed. And then, thank you for the presentation, John, I totally support the roundabout. I get questions from residents, why don't you put a light in? And I don't really know how to respond, so maybe just a follow-up communication, like, what are the bullet points, why from the engineering perspective, the roundabout?
I can give you 2 points right now, very quickly.
Okay,
One is, a roundabout is it's a safety element to an intersection. Your accidents at a roundabout are less severe because the angles are not at 90s. If there are accidents. The second one is a roundabout can handle quite a bit of traffic very efficiently.
Okay.
And it keeps the traffic moving versus having the stops and starts of a signal.
A lot of times you
you also
reduce
have
the
safer
footprint.
pedestrian crossing because
Yeah.
everybody is slowing down. Okay.
The
And they're a
roundabout
lot
itself
less
is bigger,
expensive.
but you end up, your legs coming into the roundabout tend to be narrower because you don't have all the right
Okay,
turns.
but yeah, some of those bullet points, and maybe too to address pedestrian, just because people's personal experience.
And they're a lot less expensive.
Glancing accidents versus head-ons or 90s.
Yeah. No, I look forward to having an open house and getting some more feedback.
And again, that is March 18th, right?
I believe
Okay,
so,
sure.
that was on the notes, I believe that's been confirmed.
And I don't want the engineer to worry about anything about this project.
Okay. All right,
Be
are we
concerned,
all good?
don't worry.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, I'm sorry to
Thank
rush
you.
you.
That's fine.
Appreciate it.
Happy to come here anytime.
I'm not here.
That is, that's over there, right? So
That is,
that's the full project, so you'll have a full layout.
You want to see the layout.
Look at it more closely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Big quarters is good. So here's your layout. That's the full project.
okay, pass it on.
Have a good night.
Guys.
Gilly.
Good, all right, item number 3 on our agenda, City Hall occupancy discussion. Thanks for coming in,
No problem.
we had some questions.
Do you want to know how we calculate that? Is that, or are there specific questions
Sure.
to the
I have
small?
Tables.
So I had a question, just help me step through this. So the occupancy level is obviously the per person that we can have in the room, right?
It's number of people, right?
Yes. So then,
Lori,
She's closing it.
we gotta keep that open. Lori, it's an open meeting. We gotta
Oh.
keep that open.
can you keep it far away? a little bit?
Just give them the,
Yeah, Lori, swoosh them away. Okay, so the occupancy level is the number of bodies, right? So let's use the number 50, so 50 bodies. But then do physical features, tables, chairs also factor into that?
Yep.
Okay,
So he's gonna pull up just a picture of Village Hall real quick, maybe, so we know what we're looking at. So we calculate one occupancy load, whatever the intended function is. So for this room, there's tables and chairs. So the first thing we do is we figure out what the classification is. And it's probably good to point out that it's not just a state fire code thing, it's building code, the architects, we all use the same formula.
Okay.
Let's call it that.
It's not reading that.
Anyways, so Village Hall is considered an assembly.
okay,
The whole building is multiple occupancies, like this is business up here. We're not really worried about up here, you got people in offices, you're not gonna worry about a big crowd up here, but downstairs we would worry about that. So you figure out the square footage of the room, and then hopefully you can pull up at least the table so you can see it, it'll go to your question, why we have to use tables and chairs, because those are what's in there. So you don't calculate multiple occupancy loads, like if there's one table or two tables or three tables. It's either tables and chairs or no tables and chairs.
Okay.
So there's 144 seats in there, and I can pull up the specific numbers for you as far as the square footage and all that. But then you take the square footage, you divide by 15, which you'll see on the table, you get 150. Now, when I first went in there with, it was a confusing time. Mark left, Jessica came in, we used Victoria for a little bit. I came in to do fire inspection stuff, and I decided to calculate it just to make sure, and it was posted 200. And that's when I came up 150, and I'm like, what's wrong here? We shouldn't be off that much. So the architect sent me this, which took me a long time, but I finally found over in the little tiny print way over here. That they divided by 7, which is chairs only. So we got on the phone with the architect, and sure enough, they were like, yeah, we didn't know there were tables in there too, and so it was their mistake. So 150 is the number. There's the room we're looking at, and that's how the table should be set up. You should have those access ways down the middle, because, you know, for fire code, you have your 3 exits that you see there. Yes, you can obstruct those exits, but there's also what's called an exit access, which is kind of the hallways that lead to it. Those can't be obstructed, so you couldn't put a row of tables down the middle where people need to get out the door. Or there's an exit discharge, which would be like the foyer area. We couldn't put more tables in there or anything. That has to be fully unobstructed, because people are going out there. So you want to avoid bottlenecks.
So we have benches there right now, right?
In that foyer area?
Yep,
Okay.
so there's the benches there.
Yeah.
So, and this, just throwing it out there, so if you were to,
Yeah.
so if you were to shove, let's say, tables, you know, over that, right? So if the tables have legs in the center, you can kind of push it up over that. Would that be any different than having the benches right there?
Just over the top of the benches?
Yeah, I mean, the benches are, you know, they sit here, but if the tables somehow you
Probably
could.
wouldn't be a problem. I mean, I'd have to look at it, but as long as you still have clear access and exit, you know, and you're not creating a spot where people are gonna get jammed up.
Right, so that's the only thing I could think of as if to add more tables, let's say you want to display something, or people are just signing in or
Sure.
grabbing a name tag or something, is because technically it's already in, I don't want to say obstructed area, but it's a taken up space.
Kind of where that TV's hanging, is that where you're talking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think tables could go along that wall.
Okay,
Obviously, I'd have to look at it, but
sure.
it shouldn't be a problem.
That might be something good to just clarify and.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, the chances of it happening often are not huge, but it'd be nice to know that, yeah, since we already have these here, if you can just shove tables up. we can
The
say
one
we can do that.
issue is you wouldn't want it to be a spot where people are gonna congregate, where it's gonna hold up and crowds would build at those tables, that
Right.
kind of thing. Because then you would start to.
So you want to put the
obstruct.
food there?
Speaking of food, so the kitchen area, is that calculated in as well?
Not part of this number, no.
Okay? So technically, how many people can be in the food area?
The kitchen,
Yes.
I have not calculated that occupancy load, but you wouldn't. That, again, that's not something where you worry about it getting overcrowded. I mean, there shouldn't be. I mean, I could easily do it, but that's not
I
something
want,
I've calculated.
the reason I ask that is, would those people count to the total occupancy load for the room? Or would that be a separate calculation?
Separate. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
So your 150 does not count the people in the kitchen.
correct.
that helps, because I was, well, is it, if we have 20 people helping with an event, does that go against our count? And I'm like, well, are they walking the floor? Are they in the kitchen? What's their position? And so if it's they're in the kitchen and moving through, it's no big deal.
Yeah, and if you're a few people over, that's not something you're gonna come in and shut an event down over, but when you start talking, you know, they had 200 before and I came up with 150, you start
That's a
talking
big
about
difference.
50 people, that's, and the number of chairs at 144 makes it easy for us to kinda know if they're over. You see all the chairs filled, and a bunch of people standing around.
But if they're going like this,
Put them in the kitchen, give them a spatula.
Exactly.
Just say about too many cooks in the kitchen.
So if you wanna switch to that next page, you can at least see the different classifications.
I
If
think
you
it's
have
two
them.
pages. I think it's 2
Oh,
pages.
too much? Oh, well.
No, 2 pages.
There you go.
Oh, two more.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't need that, that's
Yeah,
upstairs.
go down to the next
It's only 2 pages.
It's only 2 pages.
It's a 2-page document.
one. I maybe sent you the wrong one, sorry.
Do you want
That's
to
all
which
right.
one or 2?
I was just gonna show you the table of the different occupancies and
Okay.
how we come up with the number 15 and 11.
I
can-
trust that your calculations are right on the money.
Well, I did it about 10 times before I notified him, because I was nervous.
Oh.
Well, I think for me, those were the questions that I needed answered, and especially with, if we could have, like I said, the extra tables kind of in the front where those benches are, if they needed just extra room to sit things.
Are you thinking like, you're not thinking people sitting there, right?
Nope.
You're thinking like silent auction items
Yeah,
and.
yeah, or
Check
like I
in
said,
your
you walk in,
tickets
check
or
it, yeah.
what they've done, okay.
For a wedding or something, drop the gifts here or something like
Right.
that kind of thing.
Or even, you know, the Black Sox when they have their bingo, right? You come in, you pay right here, you walk, and you're on your,
Okay,
on
yeah.
move.
Okay, I just wasn't sure what you're
Yeah.
thinking.
I think the only thing I would look at too with you guys, and I started to review it, is your contract for the rental space. I didn't see anything specific about occupancy and then making sure they stay within that. And maybe something Larry can answer. And there is stuff in there about the fire department and not breaking any of their, I forget how it's worded, but their rules. But
You should probably have a line in there that says the occupancy level. I mean, it's really a simple.
I understand that, yeah, the occupancy level is 150.
Yeah.
It does say something about you can't bring in any extra chairs.
under the
and
hazards
tables,
part,
but-
there's a couple things, but
Checking that.
all right.
Any other questions?
All right. You know how to find us.
Thank you guys.
Call it all in.
after a promise. Thank you, guys.
You guys have a great night.
Thank you too.
Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Let's see, we have a few minutes before planning commission interviews.
See you
Can we
later.
do the updates? Yeah. So I have 2. The first is we're looking for a little bit of feedback. In Brent's city manager update he sent out last week, he mentioned the information about loose cats and dogs in the community. If you had any feedback directly related to that, it's essentially that we will not transport dogs to the pound.
Well, being that we just upped our dollar amount for paying for a full-time night officer, because we didn't really have a choice, it was either no officer or have a full-time officer. Adding a CSO to that for another cost this year, I'm not in favor of something like that. I'm just not in the notion to start spending more money on dog calls, yes.
I'm
dog
right there
transport.
with you, and additionally, I'm disappointed that it came up in January.
So am I.
When we had pretty much up until the very last meeting that we had, the third Monday in December to discuss this, and Brent said that was one of his questions was, does our town cop have everything they need? Can they do everything? And he told me it was answered as yes, that'll be fine. So, that said, this isn't a public safety issue.
Yeah.
This isn't an issue that I'm aware of as being out of control.
No, I haven't,
You know, or a threat to
running rampant.
life safety. So I'm really comfortable with saying no. Thank you.
Yep, I'm with you there.
But I want to second that, and thank you for bringing that up, because it was really, when I read that, I was really disappointed to see that come across, that this sudden fee for something we had an expectation was gonna be all-inclusive, and it wasn't, so.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Number 2 is related to the CDA's project, the Carver Crossing apartment building, the potential future project. So the CDA has asked us to partner with them on the Community Growth Partnership Initiative, the Community Development Grant application. So you may be familiar with this one if you're around for the bus garage. We applied for this grant for site cleanup and received that grant. So part of the remediation we did was funded through that grant. The CDA is now asking that the city formally puts in an application to support their project. So the grant request would be for about $100,000 for site work. There's no match required, but the grant application would need to come from the city since the CDA can't apply to the CDA for their own project. So at the next meeting, there will be a resolution that you can consider at the February 18th meeting, which is a Tuesday.
They're,
Remind me again, what's the property address or?
So, the CDA's second apartment building.
Okay.
So we've seen a concept level, but then they recognize about a $4 million budget gap for that project, so they've been exploring grant funding.
Okay.
And they've identified that this could potentially work for about $100,000.
so we're basically applying for a grant for someone.
Correct.
And Larry, how, is that okay? Is that typical, I mean, is that okay?
The answer is it depends, I'd wanna see the grant application.
Okay,
I mean, my stomach flutters, but that doesn't mean we can't do it. We've done joint grant applications in the past.
okay. Well, joint is,
I mean, my concern is because we become the granting authority, we have
Right.
the money is
Yeah.
issued to us, but it's not our project, it's not our land.
yeah, okay. Yeah, that interests me to see a little more on that.
So something coming forward at the February 18th meeting. Wanted you to at least know about it before you on a formal agenda. Good. That's what I got.
All right. Council requests?
What are we going to see, some of the feedback on the Jonathan Carver Parkway, design from the, what do we call the city group?
The steering committee.
Steering committee.
Yeah, so we wrapped up our second meeting with that group last Thursday night, and it was personally, I think it was a fun process. It seemed like everyone had some really good feedback. We took the feedback and started to draft what it might look like. Our next task between Dan, Jonathan, who did the actual landscape design, and then Brent is we need to sit down and start hammering out some costs. So we asked the group not to think about costs largely, just because we didn't want them to feel like, oh, we can't get it to look the way we want it to because we're worried in the back of our head about a number. We guided them gently if they were asking for things that would be like, oh, that's your whole budget for that one.
You can't have that one thing.
So we're gonna sit down collectively as a group and start hashing through some of the numbers. We're hoping to get it to you in the next couple months, just to give you what it looks like. And then we requested that anyone from that group would come to a council meeting, just so you could ask questions, talk through some of their decision-making, what their ideas were. But overall, it was a really fun process. It was
Cool.
quick, efficient. People had some really good ideas.
Good, thank you.
The steering committee, not the media.
Steering committee.
landscaping.
Media and landscaping.
Any other questions while we're waiting for our folks? No? Okay. All right. We've got until, oh, no, we've got 6:30, okay.
Oh, sorry.
So how was that game last night?
Can I have yours?
Nobody said what the game was.
I just noticed. I literally did not look at anything.
I didn't either, but the cheese came back to
Oh,
it was fun. I was like, ooh, this isn't gonna work out. Oh, the 49ers got there. And then all of a sudden, Andy fell asleep, and I was like, you're missing it. I don't even wake you up though.
Oh, I have a question. So when are we appointing, all of these, commissions?
The next meeting, so February 18th.
Okay, I just want to know when I need to prepare my stuff, my thoughts. Thank you.
Maybe certainly.
When do I need to be organized? Hi.
Are we gonna be taping this part, or is?
Yes.
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 Yes,
No?
continue.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
seems like we're still meeting, but.
Check. I'm just waiting for Glenda.
Brian, I hope we didn't make you too much of a mess after this on your bottom.
No, it wasn't too bad at all, so.
No.
Oh, yes?
It said, looked like, it said, it
Brittany.
looked like it was a good
Brittany's
time though.
here,
Oh.
but we're
Oh,
waiting for Glenda.
we had
And a good crowd.
Or you can invite him.
doubled our attendance,
Really?
Okay.
It was beautiful. It was a good weekend.
quadrupled our fundraising.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah, it was
awesome.
really good.
That was a nice article in the paper too.
Yeah, I took a great picture. And then, yeah,
Okay.
it's out here, they've
Oh,
got
is
it,
it?
yeah. And Lori Osterday had a group of like 25 something that she brought. So
Hi.
it's actually
Hi.
really picture of
How's it
that.
going?
On the
On the
picture, yeah.
Okay. Oh, I didn't even look at the time.
I think we'll do introductions real quick.
Yeah.
I think you know most folks here, but Brittany Johnson, I'm the mayor.
Joy McKnight, I'm on city council. Lori Sayer, city council.
Christy Lock, City Council.
I'm Henry, City Council.
Karen Swift, Community Development Director.
Brian Scope, Public Services Director.
Brenda Good, Deputy Clerk.
Dan Lund, City Engineer.
Larry Harris, City Attorney.
So then, Craig, you've been through this before, we've got a list of questions, it might be the same as the last time you were here, we'll go through and ask them one by one, and then we'll give you a chance to ask questions that you might have at the end.
Okay.
So the first question that I have is, please briefly introduce yourself.
My name is Greg Riggs. Live at 6019 River Rock Drive in Copper Hills. Been a resident there since 2017, so about 3 years now. Newer development and just settled there. So.
Good, thank you.
All right, so in terms of land use and planning, describe the differences, if any, between what might be best for your neighborhood and what might be best for your community.
Well, again, moved into a newer development. A lot of development that's going in north of us, south of us, right by the school, even west of us. I think from a land planning and development, it's just ensure the proper growth is happening, proper housing development and so forth, residential, as well as a mixture of potential commercial and so forth. But I think it's an important piece to continue having that small town feel in some ways with Carver, but definitely know that there's a huge opportunity for growth overall.
Thank you. And the next question, describe how you envision Carver to be in the year 2030.
I think it's, again, a continuing growing area. A lot of families and whatnot, I think, are starting to grow up, or to start to move up to this particular area. So I think it's going to be still a city that's going to be much bigger at that time frame within the next 10 years, but also to try to figure out how more potential individuals stay within the city, work within the city, bring in commercial businesses and so forth to have people stay within the city and work in the city instead of going out elsewhere to have their jobs and so forth.
Right, should the city's zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan always be followed? Why or why not?
I think it should, as far as keeping within legal parameters, rules, justifications, and so forth, not necessarily having anyone stepping over those type of ordinances or anything. So I think it should still be followed as far as looking at the development maps and so forth, figuring out with the right structure and mixes of residential, commercial, agriculture, and so forth.
Tough question.
I didn't think this one was time. I always end up. I'm sorry, go
What
ahead.
if it's the third Thursday of the month? Will you be able to consistently attend these meetings?
Yes, I am involved with some other activities, but with the current term I have been involved with, I think in the amount of meetings that have been involved with that I've missed, so to say, maybe one or two, other than not having cancellations that come up or so forth. But other than with the planning commission and everything, something I have kind of stepped into a role to help with the youth activity growth of Carver. Have actually just stepped in to become the new director of the Carver Community Baseball, youth baseball and softball association. So, yeah.
All right, the last question is, if not appointed to the Planning Commission, can we interest you in the Heritage Preservation Commission?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still definitely looking in any way I can help with the city growth in any potential possible way, but any potential opportunities I'm willing to help out.
Great. That's it for our questions. Do you have any for us?
The only question I have is, I guess, when decision will be made.
We're going to be making that decision at our next meeting, so it will be on Tuesday, February 18th, because of the, President's Day holiday. So we'll get back to you later that week, if not that evening, so.
Sounds good.
A couple more weeks.
Very good.
All right, and thanks for your work with the CCYBSA.
Yes.
Great.
I saw you meeting with Jane downstairs.
Yep.
Tonight?
No, it was just weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, so. But thank you for the time.
Thanks, Rick.
This next person will look like Stephanie. No, I did the same thing. I was like, oh, we don't have anybody in we'll start with introductions. Courtney, the mayor.
I'm Joy McKnight, I'm on City Council.
Nice to meet you.
Lori Sayer, City Council.
Christy Mock, City Council.
Glenn Henry, City Council.
Erin Smith, I'm the Community Development Director.
Ryan Skoke, Public Services Director.
Brenda Good, Deputy Clerk.
Dan Lana, City Engineer.
Larry Harris, I'm the city attorney.
We just have a list of questions. Everybody gets asked the same questions. And we'll go through these questions and then we'll give you a chance to ask your questions.
Okay.
My question is, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Stephanie Griesinger. I've lived in Carver since 2009. A little bit about myself. It's myself, my husband, and our son right now. We're expecting our second child in May. My husband is on the fire department, and he's also the crazy guy that goes running when it's like negative 30 degrees out. So
I know that guy.
you've probably seen him. In my normal 9-to-5 job, I'm a financial planner at a wealth group in Plymouth. I also work out of an office in EP, so that's my full-time job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, in terms of land use and planning, describe the differences, if any, between what might be best for your neighborhood and what might be best for the community.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I think I'm in a more established neighborhood.
Which area do you live
I'm in,
Midtown Carver.
there you go.
in? Midtown Car, is that what we're calling it? Okay.
I think it's like Oak Tree or no, it's not, River Oaks.
Okay, I
River
got
Oaks,
that, I got
yeah. Sorry. Every now and then I see the sign
It's a
where the
drive-through.
foliage is actually clear and,
Flyover
yeah.
country.
Yeah.
Flyover.
That's a nice way to put it.
You're using that later, okay.
Midtown
Go ahead.
Carver, don't use that.
So I think in my area, we're more developed, whereas we have a lot of land that is not yet quite developed in the city of Carver. And so obviously in our area, we're not looking to necessarily put like parks and different items. But some of the other areas I think in Carver would maybe benefit from those. I think just in general, we have to look at kind of everything in balance between the older parts of Carver and the newer parts of Carver. And I think that's going to be an important, trying to make sure everybody kind of gets a little bit of something.
Thank you. The next question is, describe how you envision Carver to be in the year 2030.
Gosh, in 10 years.
I'm a 10-year-old, or 9.
Yeah, 10-year-old. Well, I think back to when we moved here about 10 years ago, and I believe the sign said 1,200 people were residents, and now I look at it and it says 4,400 or something like that. So obviously it's growing by leaps and bounds. I definitely see more neighborhoods going in, just because I think this is a really highly sought after area. But with that, I think we also need to look at infrastructure like the roads, where the parks are. And then I know we've talked about having like a splash pad and all that kind of stuff for the park department, the long term. I think that's a great idea, but I think we need something that's a little bit different from all the surrounding communities. Just to make it something unique that will draw people here. But again, that also goes back to making sure we have the right infrastructure in place so that people can get here and there's parking and there's activities for people and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Should the city's zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan always be followed? Why or why not?
No, I don't think it should, and the reason I say that is because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So yes, we have a comprehensive plan and it's a great footprint, or roadmap, but if something changes in the next 10 years, we can't keep pushing forward on something just because it's in the comprehensive plan. It may not work for our community anymore, and I think you have to keep evaluating that plan, but keep within the spirit of the plan. So if the idea is to make sure that we have really great infrastructure, we might look at it now and say, this is what we need. But in 2 or 3 years, we might look at it again and go, wait a minute, that's not really what's working, and we need to be able to adjust.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The planning commission meets the third Thursday of the month.
Okay.
Will you be able to consistently attend these meetings?
Yes, I should be able to consistently attend the meetings.
It's a really tough question.
The last question is, if you're not appointed to the planning commission, would you be interested in serving in the historic preservation commission?
I would have to think about it.
It's not a trick question.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
We're
want me
not
to
judging.
expand about why I want to think about it, but I would definitely think about it. It's definitely not my first pick.
That was good. That's it for questions for you. Do you have any
Okay.
questions for Christy?
About the HPC. No, I'm kidding.
In addition to the Thursday meetings, like how much time do you think the planning commission would take?
So I am actually not the planning commission liaison, so I'm gonna refer to somebody else.
Okay, I'm gonna take that. Lori and I, and Joy, are planning commission alums. It ebbs and flows. Sometimes it takes, so there's always a packet that
Okay.
comes out before then. And they're generally not too much of a lift, an hour or two to
Okay.
read it, tops. There were a couple of summers ago where Erin had a bunch of stuff coming and we were meeting at a cadence that was more regular than the once a month. That was also the summer that we were working on the comprehensive plan and,
Okay.
So that's not meant to scare you. That's kind of not worst case scenario, but that was a heavy, meeting heavy summer. That said, we understand that all these roles are volunteer and, if you can't make it, if something comes up, we certainly understand. And that's why the model is that we have 5 commission members and then the 2 alternates.
Okay.
So, I don't know if you guys feel any.
No, that sums it up well.
So, we are going to be making these decisions at our February 18th council meeting. That's the Tuesday after President's Day. So it's going to be a couple weeks before you hear back from us, but we will let you know either that night or later that week.
Okay. Sounds good.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just kind of put you on the spot.
I know, it's like-
See your thing.
Yeah, we got it. We figured out that it wasn't one, That's all right.
I think I proved I can do that. Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Good.
Good to see you again.
Yeah.
We'll start with introductions a little bit.
Okay.
I think you know everybody. I'm Courtney, I'm the mayor.
I'm Joy McKnight, City Council. Lori Sayer, City Council.
Chrissy Mott, City Council.
Yeah.
Glenn Anderson,
I
City Council.
know too well.
Aaron Smith, Community Development
I
Director.
don't know who that is.
Brian Skoke, Public Services Director.
Brenda Good, Deputy Clerk.
Dan Lana, City
Ernie Harris, City Attorney.
You know how this goes. It's
Yep.
the same as last time, maybe
Okay.
the same questions. We're gonna go around, ask questions, and then we'll give you the opportunity at the
Okay.
end to ask your own questions. Number one is briefly introduce yourself.
I'm Reed Welch. I live at Red Oak Ridge in Carver. I am currently an alternate on the Planning Commission, so I wasn't sure the procedure, so as you know, I saw there were openings and I'd like to contribute full-time, although in honesty, I think I've almost been at every meeting. I think someone's been sick almost every time, but yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed it. I'd really like to be able to help shape our community, and you know, you guys are great. Aaron is fantastic, so yeah, I'm just looking forward to helping out more regular.
All right, so in terms of land use and planning, describe the differences, if any, between what might be best for your neighborhood and what might be best for the community.
Well, I think actually, I'll use the good example is the gas station coming in on Jonathan Carver, at least proposal, right? So, you know, it's actually right
It's
across.
officially the quick.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah,
thought.
you
So
can
I
say
wasn't sure if we could say,
Say it.
the quick trip, actually we did, where that would be, you know, the residents, again, are, there's always right across the street from us. So one of my big concerns was, you know, signage and light pollution. But in terms of the city, I think it's fantastic to have another gas station, and it's right off the freeway, so it's very located, right? And, you know, tons of traffic, people even coming through from East Union or down farther on Jonathan Carver to bring more development and, you know, revenue and, all that good stuff. So I think that's kind of a good example of that, right? Where personally, I would prefer not to have a big light up gas station, but, understand that, it benefits the whole community and even not necessarily Carver residents, like I said, anyone who's passing by and convenience, so.
The next question is, describe how you envision Carver in the year 2030.
Sooner than I think, is it? I know you guys did a lot of work on the 2040 comprehensive plan, and we've reviewed that on the planning commission. I see it very similar to today, obviously, hopefully with some more commercial development. We've got that great plot again right by 212 where the Quick Trip's coming in. I know it's zoned for more commercial. Hopefully we'll get some more professional development or more office space type stuff. And then again, we have great, I don't know if to say geography, but keeping the trees and all the different unique features for, the bluffs and like in my backyard, we've got the trail and this great ravine with beautiful trees. So, want to keep the small town feel as much as possible, but again, try to expand and get more services and, try to make it as, the livable community, right? With a good balance of commercial and even the industrial, right? The new building coming up by Fleet Farm, the Lakeview, there we go, right? Just kind of, get a good mix of stuff, trying not to skew too residential or too commercial or too, industrial.
Okay, should the city's zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan always be followed? Why or why not?
It is a great guideline, but it doesn't need to be followed exactly. It's a planning tool, it's great for mapping out, but obviously there's always slight subtle variations, a lot of it's depending on the developer's willingness to build and what kind of industries you can attract and to be flexible, but, I think the plan itself, I wouldn't, switch something from industrial to residential or something crazy like that, but, maybe a light industrial to a medium industrial, just maybe some slight tweak again, depending on the industry and what the developers, and again, I would highly defer to our city staff, right? Aaron and Brent do a great job of kind of pre-screening stuff, at least that I've seen on the planning commission. All the stuff we've come through, the developers have almost very little exceptions. There was maybe one or two few, who am I trying to think of? Not zoning, but like easements, right? The lot width, that kind of stuff, and the city staff does a great job of pushing back. So I think almost all the ones that have already approved have been very negligible. So I'd like to keep that, right? Maybe a subtle variation where the staff or the planning commission deems appropriate, but in general, we'd want to, follow the plan.
The planning commission meets on the third Thursday of the month. Will you be able to consistently attend meetings?
Yes, I will.
Last question is, if not appointed to the planning commission, would you be interested in serving on the HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission?
I think I'd stay on the alternate. So I think I'd be.
Okay.
So I don't think I can have two jobs, right?
He's applying for the full spot.
The full spot.
Right, okay.
Okay, so I didn't know.
Term is not over as an
Oh,
alternate.
sorry,
So
yeah.
it goes until 2022.
No, that's a trick question.
Okay, I'm
Had
sorry.
I read ahead and put a little more thought into it, I wouldn't have asked
no
you that
worries.
question. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I think it's been a great experience. I'm glad I helped out, and I think I don't want to, but I think the two current members, if they got reappointed, I think that would be fantastic. I just saw Craig on my way in. I think he's done a great job, and everyone on there I've been happy to work with. So.
Great. Good.
All right, well, thanks.
Okay.
So we'll let you know on February, the week of February 18th. We're
Sure.
meeting, we'll discuss it at that meeting on February 18th.
Okay.
That's a Tuesday, the Monday following President's Day.
President's
So
Day.
we'll get back to you sometime that week.
Okay.
All right,
Great.
thank you.
Thanks, Reed.
All right, let's see.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Mock, a second by Councilmember Henry. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Can you run to the next one?